1. e4, the 15-year-old Bobby Fischer opens with his trademark move. Even at this young age, he seeks sharp, open positions where his calculation and aggressive instincts can shine. 1. c5, Bent Larsen, known for his uncompromising style and originality, accepts the challenge. He signals his intent to play for a win with the Sicilian defense. 2. nf3, Fischer develops the knight to its most natural square, controlling the center and preparing d4. This is the prelude to the open battle. 2. d6, Larsen plays flexibly, preventing e5 and preparing to develop. This move order often leads to the Najorf or the dragon. 3. d4, Fischer strikes the center immediately. He wants to open lines for his pieces, a hallmark of his direct style. 3. cxd4, Black exchanges the flank pawn for the central pawn, opening the c-file for his rook, a key asset in the Sicilian. 4. nxd4, White recaptures, centralizing the knight. The stage is set for the main lines. 4. nf6, Larsen develops his knight, attacking e4 and forcing White to make a decision regarding its defense. 5. nc3, Fischer defends the pawn and develops. Standard, strong play. 5. g6, the dragon variation. Larsen breathes fire. He intends to fianchetto his bishop to g7, creating a powerful diagonal battery. This leads to some of the sharpest tactical battles in chess history. 6. b3, the Yugoslav attack begins. Fischer reinforces the center and prepares to castle queenside. The plan is simple but brutal: checkmate the black king down the h-file. 6. bg7, the dragon bishop takes its post. It exerts tremendous pressure on the long diagonal, influencing the center and queenside. 7. f3, a vital prophylactic move. It supports e4, prevents ing4 harassing the bishop, and prepares the g4 pawn push. 7. Larsen castles into the storm. He trusts the defensive resources of the dragon setup to withstand Fischer's coming onslaught. 8. qd2, Fischer connects his rooks and prepares to castle long. The battery with the bishop on e3 also eyes the h6 square, aiming to trade off black's strong bishop later. 8. nc6, Larsen develops his queenside knight, adding pressure to the center. 9. bc4, Fischer places the bishop on an aggressive diagonal. This prevents black from playing d5, a thematic liberating move in the Sicilian. 9. nxd4, a rare and somewhat experimental line by Larsen. He exchanges knights to relieve tension and gain time for a queenside expansion, but Fischer will later show why this is dubious. 10. bxd4, Fischer recaptures with the bishop. His centralized bishop is a tower of strength, dominating the board. 10. b6, Larsen challenges the bishop on c4 immediately, hoping to simplify the position or damage White's structure if he exchanges. 11. bb3, Fischer calmly retreats. He refuses to open the f-file for black or straighten black's pawns. He keeps the tension high. 11. qa5, Larsen brings the queen out, pinning the knight to the king, indirectly, and preparing queenside activity. 12. Fischer castles long. The kings are on opposite sides, which means one thing: a race. White attacks the king side, black attacks the queen side. Speed is everything. 12. b5, Larsen launches his pawn storm. He threatens to dislodge the knight on c3 and open lines against Fischer's king. 13. kb1, a useful prophylactic move. Fischer tucks the king away from the c-file and unpins the c-pawn, preparing for the fight. 13. b4, black pushes on, driving the knight away to weaken White's control of e4 and d5. 14. nd5, Fischer jumps into the center. This forces an exchange that will close the c-file and give him a strong wedge in the center. 14. bxd5, Larsen is practically forced to take, or else the knight on d5 becomes too oppressive. 15. bxd5, Fischer recaptures with the bishop. While usually taking with the pawn is good, here the bishop stays active and restricts black's rooks. 15. Rack 8, Larsen mobilizes his heavy pieces on the queenside, preparing for an assault. 16. bb3, Fischer tucks the bishop back to safety. It acts as a defensive shield for the king while still eyeing the f7 pawn. 16. rc7, Larsen doubles rooks? No, he prepares to double, but mostly he is clearing the rank. He is ready to swing the rook or double on the c-file. 17. h4, the attack begins. Fischer ignores the queenside threats and starts the battering ram. The h-pawn is coming to open the h-file. 17. qb5, Larsen prepares f5 and f4, trying to trap Fischer's bishop and storm the king. 18. h5, Fischer sacrifices the pawn without hesitation. Lines must be opened at all costs. Pry open the h-file, sacrifice, mate. 18. rfc8, Larsen ignores the pawn for a moment, bringing the other rook to the fight. 19. hxg6, Fischer opens the file. The structure around the black king begins to crack. 19. hxg6, recapturing is forced. Now the h-file is an open highway for Fischer's rooks. 20. g4, a key move. It prevents nh5, blocking the h-file, and prepares to push g5 to drive away the defensive knight. 20. f5, Larsen continues his own plan, threatening f4 to trap the bishop. 21. g5, Fischer attacks the defender. The knight on f6 must move, leaving the king vulnerable. 21. nh5, Larsen plugs the h-file with the knight. This is the standard defensive resource in the dragon. It looks solid, but Fischer has a surprise. 22. rxh5, the classic exchange sacrifice. Fischer removes the plug. He gives up the rook for the knight to keep the attack flowing. This is the thematic refutation of black's defense. 22. gxh5, Larsen must take. Now his king's shelter is shattered, and the g-pawn becomes a weakness. 23. g6, Fischer drives the wedge in. He attacks f7 and pins the g7 pawn, if the bishop were still there, but here it attacks the structure. The threat is simply capturing on f7 or h7. 23. e5, Larsen tries to shut out the bishop on d4, which is staring down the long diagonal. 24. gxf7 plus, check. Fischer picks up a pawn and creates a thorn in black's position that restricts the king. 24. kf8, the king must move. It is now dangerously exposed and cut off from its army. 25. b3, the bishop retreats to a perfect diagonal. It eyes h6 and supports the d-pawn push. 25. d5, desperation. Larsen gives up a pawn to block the diagonal and shut down the light-squared bishop. 26. exd5, Fischer takes. He now has a protected passed pawn on d5 that is ready to roll. 26. rxf7, Larsen removes the dangerous f7 pawn, but his position is in ruins. 27. d6, the passed pawn advances. It attacks the rook and threatens to queen. 27. rf6, the rook tries to block and defend, but Fischer's pieces are swarming. 28. bg5, Fischer develops the bishop with tempo, attacking the rook. All of white's pieces are joining the kill. 28. qb7, Larsen tries to hold the position together, but he is running out of moves. 29. bxf6, Fischer removes the defender. The simplification leads to a completely won position. 29. bxf6, recapturing leaves the king with no pawn cover. 30. ed7, the pawn moves one step closer, attacking the rook on c8, via the discovered attack if the rook moves, but here it just attacks the rook on d8 actually, no, looking at the board, d7 attacks the rook on c8? Wait, the rook was on c8. Ah, move 18 was rfc8, wait, move 30. rd8 suggests the rook moved there or is attacked. Let's trust the text, d7 attacks the rook. 30. rd8, Larsen tries to blockade the pawn. 31. qd6 plus, 1-0. The final blow. The queen invades. If 31, kg7 32. rg1 plus leads to mate. If 31, b7 32. Qh6 plus wins. Larson resigns. A textbook example of how to crush the dragon variation.